It's hot. Ooh, it's hot. Very hot. Gotta come check out the lake first. Look at this. Wow. I wish I could just stay here for the rest of the day. Whew! I didn't realize how steep the hill was on my way down. It's a steep one, 90 degrees, 95. Whew! All right. So, today's vlog is going to be about how to shoot acreage or a large property and make it look cinematic or make it look appealing to a buyer. That might seem simple, it might seem easy to do, but typically when you're flying over acreage, it might look like this, which is kind of boring. You're just flying straight, you're just looking at a bunch of trees, and it's not all that interesting. So the family has asked me to come out, shoot the property, and make it look as pretty as possible. So I'm gonna kind of give you guys my 5 tips on how to make a property like this look not only cinematic, but make it look interesting to developers or potential buyers. So, and let me explain a little bit to you where I'm at first, so you kind of have a better idea. You see this house behind me? This house sits on 35 acres, and not sure if you can see it from here, but that is a lake that goes way back that way. So this house is, I think it's really, really awesome. Actually, let's do like 20 seconds to some B-roll. Cue B-roll. Yeah, so the house has not been occupied for a year. The house is a wreck. That was the garage. And so the house isn't the feature, the property is, the land. So they asked me to make it look as good as possible and try and keep the house out of it as much as possible. They don't really want the house to be shown, because most likely somebody's gonna tear it down. Let's start with tip number 1. Get as much information on the property as you can. It might seem simple, but typically my process before I come to a property, any property really, I look at Google Earth, I look at the surroundings, I look at the possible issues that might be out there as far as telephone lines, towers, cell towers, trees, just the tree line in general. Also look for airports, helipads, anything that is against FAA regulation in regards to the area that you'll be flying in. For this property, I did a few extra steps. I wanted to be sure that I knew exactly where the property line was, so I requested a survey of the property, and that way it gave me a clear-cut image as to where the lines begin and end for a property of this size. Tip number 2, check your settings. Always check your settings before you take off, before you initiate the motors. Also check all your gear. Make sure all your props are on securely. Check your memory card. Make sure the correct memory card is inserted or is not full. And then run through your general settings. Holy moly, that is a gigantic spider landing on my camera. So, make sure your settings are there before you take off. Okay guys, just real quick rundown for my photo settings that I typically use for the P4. Since it's so bright, I'm probably gonna have to keep my shutter speed at around 100. I've got my darkest ND filter on there. I'll do a review on that too coming up. I love them. I don't have the noise reducing propellers on there, just the stock propellers. I've got my memory card ready. For my camera settings, I'm gonna go with D-Log. It's usually the mode I always shoot in whenever I'm shooting photos. It just gives you the best palette to work with in post. Typically, I drop my shutter speed as low as I can go before I start seeing the zebra line. Zebra lines is the histogram that kind of shows you what areas are going to be blown out and not. So right now today, with my darkest ND filter on and my shutter speed as low as it can go, I have to be at 120. Also, something about that, why I have to be at 120. When you shoot in D-Log on the P4 Pro, the ISO is automatically set at 500, which is high, but that's the way the camera balances itself out. My white balance, I shoot in sunny. I never shoot auto just because it's inconsistent. When you're taking photos, it's gonna change on you while you're flying. So I always either shoot in cloudy or sunny. My aperture is set at 0.3. that stays, I keep that pretty consistent. I rarely don't ever touch the aperture on whenever I'm shooting photos. I shoot in AEB 5 shots, which means for each picture that I take, it takes 5 individual pictures. I then merge those pictures into one in post, so I get the best image possible. So that's my basic settings for the P4. For this type of property, for a large acreage property, I don't really have any need for slow motion or to do anything like that to really slow it down. So I'm gonna be shooting this property at 24 frames per second just because that gives it the most realistic, natural, kind of a blurry look to it, and it just seems, I seem to think, it's my preference as far as landscape. And so I'm just gonna leave it on 24 frames per second. I'm going to shoot in 4K, down res it, just because I think that looks a little better. So I've got my 16 ND filter on there to help with the sun, because it's about 10 a.m. here, but it's a really bright sun today. I've got 3 batteries fully charged, my remote's fully charged, my memory card is cleaned out, my settings are good to go, so now I'm ready to fly. So, tip number 3. This is gonna pertain more to when you're actually in the air. A rule of thumb that I usually always try and stick to whenever I'm flying is to always keep at least 2/3 of the horizon in your shot. That really not only balances the light, but it also allows people to understand where they are as far as height, distance. Whenever you're looking straight down and you've eliminated the horizon line, it's easy to lose track of your height and where you actually are. So by keeping that horizon there, you're still designating the majority of the screen to the property, to the ground, but it also gives you that feel of where you are, and usually the clouds or the sky is pretty, and it also adds to some color for your shots. Tip 4. When you are shooting large properties like this, it's important to understand the direction that you want to go in and the shots that you want before you get out here. So what I typically do is I will start at one height and I will clockwise work around that property, usually with an orbit, and then I'll go up maybe 50 to 100 feet, do that same path again. That way you have at least 2 heights of the acreage from a full radius all the way around the property. At that point, I'll come in lower and find shots kind of like this. Finding the low, slow shots is crucial, as opposed to just flying straight over trees or up high orbiting. That you're going to lose interest after the first 10 seconds of that. That's typically my routine. I'll start high, I'll get my orbits first, and then I'll come in and look for the unique areas of the property. Water towers here are great. Obviously the lake and the docks add to a huge part of it. If you don't have a lake, or if you don't have a water tower and it's just flat land, you really need to be sure when you're flying to always have at least 3 movements. And what I mean by that is you're either elevating or lowering, adjusting your pitch. You're either turning you're either looking left or right while elevating or lowering your pitch, and you're also adjusting the gimbal. So you're actually doing 3 movements. You're pushing up, you're pushing over, you're sliding up or down. By doing that, you're consistently moving the image in a way that is cinematic and interesting, as opposed to just flying straight, or as opposed to flying left or right and just dropping down. Adding that extra gimbal movement in there really makes for a cinematic look when flying. And also having the appropriate settings as far as being in cinematic mode, as far as adjusting your EXP settings and your gimbal reaction settings. All of that comes into play whenever you're moving 3 motions like that. Tip number 5, look at your footage before you leave. If you're out on a large property like this, 9 times out of 10, you're pretty far away from home. So the last thing you want to do is get home, look at the footage, and realize you missed an angle or you missed the side of the property and you want to go back out. So I always bring my computer with me. I look at the footage before I leave, and if there's something I don't like, if there's something I'm missing, I just go back up and do it again. So guys, those are my 5 tips on how to shoot a large acreage property. If you like this video, let me know. If these tips helped you, if they're boring, give me some feedback and let me know what you guys think. If you like this video, please give it a like, subscribe, a share always helps, and hit the notification bell so you guys know whenever we're releasing new videos. Thanks for watching. See you. Oh, it's getting hot. I don't care. It's hot. When you don't have any hair, you gotta wear a hat. It's too much on the head. It's too much on the bulb.